Well, this is KXEL Live and Local for Friday afternoon. Hello, I'm Jeff Stein. 44 degrees now in both Waterloo, Cedar Falls, and Cedar Rapids. Check of the forecast is about 5 minutes away. Well, they're counting down. Will there be a shutdown of the government or not? Joining us now via the news line is the Executive Director of America Rising, Alexandra Smith. Follow her on Twitter at Alexandra C. Smith. Alex, thanks for taking the time. What do you see? What are the tea leaves? Are we going to have a shutdown or not?
Thanks so much for having me on. I sure hope not. I would be really disappointed if Senate Democrats put funding for children's health care programs along with funding for our military and other essential services, below basically their political agenda. The bottom line is that we need to keep the government open. We need to keep it funded. Republicans have put together a perfectly reasonable plan to do that, and there is still time to address DACA and the immigration concerns that we all have by a later deadline. But the problem is that the deadline for the government funding runs out at midnight, whereas DACA runs out on March 9th.
And again, some of us have said rather loudly, we're tired of everything being kick the can down the road. But by the same token, as you just mentioned, there's a deadline for today. There's a later deadline. They don't have to be lashed together. And it's interesting now the Democratic National Committee is sending out news releases with stories for various states saying how horrible things were when the government was shut down in 2013. This, as opposed to suggesting any solutions for 2018.
Well, that's exactly right. Of course, I would prefer to have just a budget passed so we're not kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that the clock is running out. And tonight at midnight, our government will shut down. That means that our brave men and women in the armed forces, they work without pay or will work with deferred pay, as will countless other civil servants in this country. And, I think that's just, wrong to do. And it's funny because when you look at some of the Democrats' past statements taken just from 2013, from the shutdown then, they're singing a very different tune in 2018 when the midterm prospects are on the line. Chuck Schumer, who's the ringleader of all of this whole mess in the Senate, he called it governmental chaos in 2013 when Republicans were trying to shut it down. But really, this has been a long-term plan of the Democrats, really all along. They always intended to tie DACA to government funding. Of course, you need 60 votes in the Senate in order to get past debate, in order to get cloture. And Republicans just don't. We have a majority, but we just don't have that. We have 51 plus the vice president. So, in order to get anything done, we do need Democratic votes. But they've been insistent on making this about immigration and not about the essentials of keeping our government open.
There's a post on Twitter I'm just seeing suggesting that there's some polling on the left, on the Democrat side, indicating that if the public sees a shutdown as because of DACA, that is going to significantly hurt the Democrats. Is it that the kind of thing that could lead this to the balance to be tipped to actually getting something passed? Because I suggested earlier this hour the Democrats might as well go along because the stakes get even higher a month down the road with a debt ceiling and another continuing resolution and DACA.
I think so, because if you look at past shutdowns, so think about the shutdowns under Bill Clinton, really those sort of got blamed on Congress and not Clinton himself. And, of course, Donald Trump came to Washington as a change agent, so he can kind of just point to the whole thing as dysfunction. And what Democrats are really riding on in 2018 is not simply the unpopularity of Congress. They're really hoping to bring down Donald Trump's numbers in order to get their members across the finish line in some of these close races. So, the better that he looks, I think that the harder their midterm prospects are. So it's really a political gamble. And in fact, it's one that a lot of people are sort of, guessing in D.C. or surmising that the Democrats, some of these Senate Democrats, particularly the Democrats from states that the president won and who are up for re-election this year, they're sort of playing. They have a good poker face right now, but ultimately this isn't something that they want because they see it as flowing back on them and not on the president and not necessarily on Republicans.
It seemed to me that Democrats during the midterm elections when President Obama was in office were really wanting to ride his coattails, but there were none because he was not on the ballot. Similarly, I suppose if you're a Democrat in 2018 and you want to blame Donald Trump for everything, people can't vote against Donald Trump directly, and I think they see through that.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely the case. And particularly, I think it's getting harder when, the president, who was a strong advocate for tax reform, who really played an instrumental role in getting that across the finish line, Americans are going to see next month that they have more money in their paychecks. They're going to see in their taxes in later on next year that they're going to be paying less in taxes. And in fact, there was a poll that showed that the tax bill was considerably less popular before it passed than it is now. And it's because people are starting to realize what happened with it and all of the, sort of democratic hyperbole about this being a bill for the rich really didn't pan out. I mean, I think that that's something that the president can claim as a signature achievement. And so, and also the fact that the people who voted for Donald Trump, the independents who crossed over in 2016, voted for him because he was a change agent. They weren't necessarily voting on ideological lines. And so, I think to tie all of these other congressional Republicans to Donald Trump in the midterm elections isn't necessarily a winning strategy because 2016 was unlike anything we had ever seen in modern politics.
Alex, thanks so much for the insight. Hopefully we aren't talking next week about when the government will reopen. Hopefully they get things taken care of, but we'll talk again soon.
I hope so, too. Thank you so much for having me on.
Alexandra Smith is Executive Director of America Rising, the America Rising PAC. You can follow America Rising PAC at America Rising, and you can follow her at Alexandra C. Smith. And, of course, we're online. I'm at Iowa Politics, and this is at KXEL 1540 on both the Twitter machine and Facebook.